finistrada.
ZenVStyle.com. 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 ZenVStyle.com.
All right, viewers, so welcome to the Black Agenda Podcast. I'm your co-host, Devin Dito, along with my co-host, Adrian Guest, and we are excited to bring you the finale of our HBCU Awareness Series, and we're excited to have Jackson State University and its president, Dr. Thomas K. Hudson. And just to give you a little bit of information about Dr. Hudson, he was named the president of Jackson State University just a few months ago on November 19th, 2020 by the Board of Trustees. And so and he was named the president after serving as special assistant to the president and chief diversity officer. And so, as president of JSU, Dr. Hudson's goals have been to enhance the university's legacy and expand its global footprint while also fortifying the school's mission to produce ethical and technologically advanced global leaders who properly address societal problems and compete effectively. And so before joining the staff at Jackson State, Dr. Hudson had actually founded his own law practice and served as an EEO specialist for the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA. And so Dr. Hudson holds a bachelor's degree in political science from Jackson State. And he also has a Juris Doctorate from the University of Mississippi School of Law. And so just to top it off here, Dr. Hudson is also a member of the Margaret Walker Alexander Center Board of Directors and the JSU Athletics Hall of Fame Foundation Board of Directors. So an impressive resume, and so we're happy to have you on the show, Dr. Hudson.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite and I appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you. And so our first segment, usually we talk about the history and and the value of HBCUs. And so just about every other president we've spoken to has either graduated or previously worked at, attended an HBCU. And so and like you, before becoming president and leader of the university, you were, a student. You got your bachelor's from there. And so you're no different. And so you went on from Jackson State, got your Juris Doctorate from the University of Mississippi. So just a real general question. We just wanted to ask you, when you were a young student coming up, how important was it to you to attend an HBCU for your higher education? And then what does it mean? What's it like going from student on campus to now president of that same university?
Well, growing up, I grew up around this university. I grew up in the area. My siblings went here, my mom went here, and my earliest memories of school are of Jackson State University. So there was literally no other place that I wanted to attend, that I was going to attend at Jackson State University. So I knew about, if this makes sense, I knew about Jackson State before I knew about the entire HBCU concept. But really, being here, being a part of the culture, there's nothing like the HBCU experience. It's a nurturing environment. It's a fun environment, as any student who's attended here can attest to. But it's also that place where you can become who you were meant to be. HBCUs just have such a storied history of taking, these raw students, raw young men such as myself, and really molding them into gems. And, that's just the legacy and the culture of Jackson State University and HBCUs in general.
That's a powerful statement, because that's the narrative that we want to come out of this series. That's the narrative that we want to speak for the entire HBCU community, because no matter if you're a JSU, a FAMU, or a Howard, you had so much value to the community. But one of the things that I know, Devin know, is that HBCUs don't get enough attention. Even in my hometown, because I'm from Mississippi, Devin's from Mississippi, we're both from Mississippi. My hometown is Eupora, Mississippi, and, not very far from JSU, about an hour and a half. But when I was getting ready to decide on where to attend school, I really didn't have any clue about the importance of HBCU and about the culture, just because I didn't have anybody from my family that attended an HBCU, and there wasn't really anybody in the community who was a big advocate. And when I got ready to graduate, I graduated top of my class. So my counselors and teachers and even principals were saying, you should go to Mississippi State, you should go to Ole Miss. So our question, Dr. Hudson, why does it take having someone maybe within, an HBCU community within that school district for students to really understand the value of an HBCU? And what can HBCUs maybe do better so that students, no matter if they're attending a majority Black school district or not, they're going to fully understand that an HBCU should be on their radar when deciding where to attend college?
That's a great question. And your story is a very common one. When I was in Eupora, up towards Northeast Mississippi, and when I was at the University of Mississippi in Oxford, there was just not that heavy HBCU presence there. So most of your students, even your African-American students, just did not know about HBCUs. Did they know about Jackson State, Alcorn, and Valley? Yes, they knew about those schools. They knew about the demographic population, but they really didn't grasp what makes HBCUs special. And sometimes I don't think, we've kind of taken an attitude when you ask, what can we do better? I sometimes think that in the past, we've taken an attitude of, well, you just have to be here to experience it, right? You have to know about it. You have to have had a family member here. But that's not everyone's story. We really have to intentionally tell our story in such a way in which we articulate what makes HBCU special. What is going to happen to you once you step foot on this campus? How are we going to help you achieve your goals in a way that aligns with your culture, your sense of being, your sense of who you are? How do we really truly tell that story? You're starting to see more and more success stories out of HBCUs in terms of telling that story. It certainly helps when you have Kamala Harris, not only the first Black female vice president, right? The first female vice president, the first African-American vice president, an HBCU graduate, Howard, really showing what we can produce. You know, CEOs of major companies, everywhere you go, just really seeing those success stories in person, in the flesh, really heightens that awareness. So when you see those things, we have to come right behind and say, this is what we produce and this is how you can become a part of it. And you're seeing, again, more and more success stories of HBCUs doing just that.
You're spot on, and it really speaks to one of the points that another HBCU leader brought up, was the fact that, you know, with the news media, they over sensationalize the bad stuff. They really like to tell, you know, the negatives, and that's one of the things that I got, you know, being in Eupora, I got all the negatives about Jackson, like you don't want to live in Jackson because of all of this and that. And we kind of, you know, play, you know, almost to the detriment of our community. So we've got to really make sure that we continue to do these sorts of conversations to further bolster the fact that HBCUs are top tiered institutions. So thank you for making sure to bring up that perspective. But just a quick point on that. No, just a quick point. You brought up a very important factor in terms of location, right? You know, in the state of Mississippi, and most of your HBCUs are in those major metropolitan population areas. They're in those areas, they're in those pockets that people tend to stay away from and not want to invest in. And we have to talk about how we are really a part of the community and how we in fact build those communities and how we make those communities richer. So again, we have to really truly tell our story and not run away from it, not run away from who we are, where we are, but really talk about the greatness and how location plays a part in that. So again, your story is a very common one, and it's one that we have to counteract over and over again. I'm proud that you're doing this type of podcast, in part based on some of the experiences that you've had, because again, we really have to tell this story in a more intentional way.
Yep. Yes, we do. And no, go ahead, Adrian.
No, I was just gonna say absolutely. Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah. No. That was it. You know, just we've gotten different things from different universities, and even at Fisk, you know, they've taken a very, very hard look and laser focus on trying to tell that story. So they're putting stories in newspapers and magazines all across the country to get their name out there, so that people don't just hear the bad things about about HBCU. So we appreciate you mentioning that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the societal perception in our next segment. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll discuss, you know, some of the societal perceptions, but also what you're doing at Jackson State to try to counteract that. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Viewers, welcome back. Let's get into our second segment here. Remember, we're joined today by Dr. Thomas Hudson, president of Jackson State University. So Dr. Hudson, our second segment is about societal perception. You know, we know in our society, we tell our Black and brown children that they're going to have to work harder, you know, go over and beyond to prove themselves. And I think that that's kind of the same notion in the lens that we see HBCUs having to really go over and beyond to prove themselves at a sea of other colleges and universities. And as we start this HBCU series, we notice that a lot of schools have really big, ambitious plans over the next several years to really make sure they counter that narrative and can compete within that sea of colleges and universities. And your institution, JSU, is no different. We know that you all have a really big plan, an 11-year strategic plan, where I know you were the co-chair to help really, pull that plan apart. So our question, how do you feel your university strategic plan positions JSU to be a leader in higher education?
Well, and that's a great lead in because the very beginning, the first part of our strategic plan is the student portion, students first and foremost. How do we bring students to the table? How do we bring them onto campus? And how do we really get that true return on investment? When you come to Jackson State, what do you leave with? We want you to leave with a degree and really set you on your career path. So that's the first thing we have to do within our strategic plan and just overall with the university is really set those students on their path towards their goals. At Jackson State, we have 93 different degree program offerings. We offer bachelor's, master's, specialist, doctorate degrees, and it's all about making you, again, that person who you were meant to be, from an engineer to an epidemiologist, even criminal justice, right? Being a law enforcement officer, being an HBCU, we're a part of all of those conversations and those positions which make our society great. So it's really about the diverse program offerings we have, our student-centered focus, in terms of how we want those students to matriculate through those programs. And then what do you leave with? You leave with the competitive degree that will allow you to do whatever it is you want to do in life, whether it's go to graduate school, go to professional school, or enter this vast job market that we have here. That's the JSU advantage. And again, that's the story that we have to tell within the context of an HBCU, that while you're here, nurturing environment allows you to be who you are and really sets you up for success.
Right. And that's something that we've heard from many HBCUs, is that nurturing environment and, and making sure that the student feels like the people at the university care. They're not just trying to get you in and out, in 4 years, get you a degree that you may not be able to use in your career. There's a lot of people out there who do that. But one of the things we know, despite the societal perception, is that, like you say, you are trying to change that narrative. And so we have to ask you, of course, you're at JSU, and JSU made a big splash this year with their hiring of their new football coach, which is NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders. And so we wanted, we had the opportunity to ask, what has that done? Having a coach of that caliber on your sidelines now, I'm sure that's brought a ton of attention, to the university. So we just wanted to ask you, what is it like to have him there, and what has it done for the university when it comes to the narrative, student interest, donor interest, and what has it done maybe for the city of Jackson at large to have somebody like that?
All of those things. It's brought a true positive spotlight onto Jackson State, the city of Jackson, and HBCUs in general. Landing a big name like that, but not only that, the way he's come in and really embraced the city, embraced Jackson State, and wanted to not only be a part of this HBCU culture, but be a part of enhancing us from a perspective of the football program and sports is really important. He brings a spotlight to the university. And, one of the things I'm fond of saying is that you may come for Deion, but you're going to stay for Jackson State University. You're going to see all that we have to offer and maybe see it in a way that you wouldn't have otherwise. We've seen that story told over and over again, and it's really been a big enhancement to the university, to our brand, to our public perception. And look, it doesn't hurt that we're actually doing well on the football field also. Winning helps, right? Winning helps with morale. Winning helps your alumni feel better about themselves. It helps with your giving. Having a successful football program has been proven to increase applications for admission to school, help with enrollment. So all of those things are positives that we've been able to benefit from. And we couldn't be happier with how this has gone thus far.
That's a good point. And, when thinking back to, our days at Mississippi State and playing tuba at, football games, that was a big appeal for everybody, whether you're a fan, whether you're a parent or student, it was a big appeal. And one thing, maybe a lot of HBCUs do focus more on, the academics, and obviously we need that. But, what you're saying is maybe if we do focus on our athletics and some of the other things that bring in, money, because, we know sports makes a lot of money, different things like that, we can maybe bring in a little bit more excitement and student enrollment and things like that. Really good perspectives, because I think that when you're an HBCU, you're fighting against a narrative that tries to keep us down because we're minorities. That's kind of the American society, always keeping minorities down. So we have to figure out different ways to be different, to be ingenuitive, so that we can overcome that dynamic despite all the challenges. So we're glad to see that Deion Sanders is helping to do that, because we know, we did a story on Jackson about, the water problem that you all are having. And, we're hoping that, that's gotten a little bit better, since, we did our reporting, and hoping that, with that star appeal, that's bringing some attention to, Jackson, because our city desperately needs that. But
absolutely. And look, Dak Prescott, right, when he was at Mississippi State, as you well know, brought a lot of attention when that football program, really reached those heights. But in the end, Mississippi State has a great veterinarian program. Mississippi State has a great engineering program. Those things are stable, and those things were really highlighted as a result and part of that athletic success. It's the same thing at Jackson State. We have a business school that's in the top 5% of all in the nation based on its accreditation. Those things are important to highlight. Some people might not see those things, but for the spotlight that athletics brings. And as president, that's not something I'm going to shy away from. That's something I'm going to embrace. And that's something we're going to definitely take advantage of, so it can, to the benefit of Jackson State University.
That's a really good point, because I think sometimes there is this tension almost between athletics and academics. It's like, why are you focusing so much on athletics and just kind of throwing, academics is kind of falling to the side? But in your situation, you're trying to use athletics to better, or, put more attention on the great academics you already have. And so that relationship can work. And I do remember at Mississippi State, we saw the next few years a bump in enrollment and definitely just general interest, because the football team was doing what it was doing. They were playing on a national stage, and people were like, oh, okay, Mississippi State, what are they all about? So it does bring in a ton of, interest. And so it's really cool to see, Jackson State go through that in real time now. You're the president, newly coming in, new head coach, so it's really cool to see what you guys are doing and how you're using your newfound fame really, to better your university. So I really, really appreciate that perspective. So that's going to do it for our second segment. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll kind of talk about some of the awareness and diversity challenges and things. And we're going to ask, what are you all doing down there? So we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back.
Greetings, I am Kijana Roberts, a senior mass communications major from Gulfport, Mississippi, and I have the pleasure of serving as the fourth Mr. Jackson State University. Attending an HBCU is important to me because I feel it's necessary to be involved in a community that's built on the foundation of support and diversity. At HBCUs, minorities are given the best hands-on resources that will help further their education and find promising careers. Besides, where else can you find the baddest band in the land, the sonic boom of the South, than at an HBCU? And that's why I chose Jackson State University.
Greetings, I am Deja Davis, a senior business marketing major from Belleville, Illinois, and I currently serve as the 81st Miss Jackson State University. Going to HBCU has been one of the best experiences of my life. To the culture, traditions, all the networking, the family environment, just all of the above has made my experience here at Jackson State University one of a lifetime. I can definitely say that Jackson State University has challenged my mind and changed my life.
Greetings, I am Jacory Daniels, a senior biology pre-med student here at Jackson State University, where I serve as the 75th Student Government Association President. And attending an HBCU is very important to me because of the rich history and legacy that it holds each and every day. On my campus, my dear old college home, Jackson State University, we showcase this each and every day as we walk down the plaza, from the games on Saturday nights to the boom playing. This is why I chose Jackson State University.
All right, welcome back, viewers. So we are continuing our conversation with Dr. Thomas Hudson, who is the current president of Jackson State University. And so we've talked a little bit about the value and the perception of HBCUs. So we kind of want to talk about, diversity. And so we know in 2021, we continue to have more and more African-American students choose to attend PWIs. And this is something, that our civil rights leaders fought for before us. There were plenty of the first African-American student to go to, all types of schools and try to integrate that. And so that's a new challenge, in 2021, where now, you have so many Black students going to PWIs. HBCUs are kind of in a way having to shift their messaging a little bit to show that they can not only, they were founded to teach Black students, but they can educate anybody. Anybody can come to a Jackson State or, an Alcorn or Valley and get a great education. And so our question, is just how is Jackson State, responding to this new, recruiting environment where you're not only competing for African-American students, but now you're having to compete to recruit in, students of all races. And what have you, and just kind of what is your goal with that? And how have you had to increase the share of non-African-American students on campus to compensate for maybe more, Black students going to other schools?
Well, it goes back, first of all, to what I said earlier about the number of programs and the type of program offerings. The fact is, our science, engineering, and technology, those programs within that particular college have pretty much 100% job placement rates. And so if you want to fulfill your dream to be an engineer, to be a chemist, you really couldn't go to a better place than Jackson State University. And that's true no matter what your race or anything, right? So it's really about selling the university and its programs in order to create that diversity. HBCUs have always been open to all, and that's really the natural advantage that we have. It's not so much an intentional effort on our part, or there had been an intentional effort on our part to quote unquote increase diversity, because the doors were never closed to anyone. But in this market, in this current market, with the competition that you see, it is important that we really talk about our legacy, talk about our successes, talk about the quality of program offerings, so we can be a destination for all students. We'll always be an HBCU. We'll always have our tradition. We'll always have that legacy on which we'll continue to build upon. But as it stands now, we're open for all. We always have been open for all. Jackson State is a great place to get your degree and really start you on the path to fulfilling your dreams. And that's a message that we push to all students, no matter what your background or where you're from. Jackson State is very proud through its international programs, through its graduate programs, and just overall student experience to be a great place and a very diverse place when it comes to higher learning. And we're very proud of that.
Dr. Hudson, it just speaks to the fact that even though we as, the Black community were always put out and left out, we never, left out or put out anybody else. We, always started off our institution with the idea that you don't have to be Black to, come here, versus other institutions who kicked us out. So, that really speaks volumes. One of the other things that, we've talked about in our series is the fact that, HBCUs are responsible for so many degrees within our community, but the struggle is even further than that. They're doing more than just education. One of the things that someone said to us is that HBCUs are responsible for creating the majority of the Black middle class in America. And we can see that, whether it's healthcare, whether it's civil rights, and now economic justice. We know that JSU is partnering with Hope Enterprise and Goldman Sachs, among others, for a $130 million investment throughout the Deep South, which is huge because, as Devin and I know, from Mississippi, the Deep South really needs that sort of investment. So our question, Dr. Hudson, how important is it for HBCUs to really lead the charge and to participate in activities like these that go beyond the efforts just to aid in the education of our communities?
Well, HBCUs build communities. Every successful Black enterprise historically has had HBCU roots. And that's a story that continues on to this day. So really, as a builder of communities, it's important that we engage with partnerships like with Hope Enterprises and Goldman Sachs to continue along those lines, whether it's through our Small Business Development Center, through our Community Development Center, through our School of Public Health, which dedicates itself to addressing health disparities throughout the nation, which is one of the key drivers of economic inequality. Lack of access to healthcare and quality healthcare we've always been committed to really being a part of that overall solution, that economic solution. Again, we build communities. Jackson State built the community that surrounds it. And we want to continue in that mode, maybe in a somewhat different way, but we want to continue in that mode and continue in that space in accordance with our mission. This is what we do, and this is what we're entrusted with doing. So Jackson State, and that's not just the Jackson State story, that's an HBCU story in general. We want to continue that work, and we want to inspire others to continue on that work as well.
Right. And I love that message there, because it shows you, like you say, HBCUs help to build the communities around them. You're already in major metropolitan areas that tend to have needs that, exceed what the city can provide. And so you need somebody or a Jackson State or a university to come in and try to help that. And we've seen that, Howard's doing like vaccines, they're doing testing, FAMU's doing it too. Everybody is trying to do their part, to help our community. And so great message there. And so that's going to do it for our third segment. And so we have one more question for you, Dr. Hudson, before we get you out of here. So we're going to take our very last break. And when we come back, we'll get your final message. Stay with us.
All right, viewers, let's get back into it to wrap up our episode. And really, Dr. Hudson, we really appreciate you being here. Remember, viewers, we're joined today by Dr. Thomas Hudson, president of Jackson State University. This final message, Dr. Hudson, is the final message is going to wrap up our series and, end it. We always say send it off in a great big bow, but as this one is going to be the ending, I don't know what this is going to be wrapped in, but to set the stage for your final message, when you invest in HBCUs, you're investing in America. That's the theme that we want to come out of this series. Blacks have built America. No matter what sector you look at, there's been tremendous Black influence. And HBCUs have been right there in the mix through it all, educating our people and better preparing us to be better stewards of freedom, equality, and even our planet. HBCUs have earned a special place within the fabric of American history, culture, and society. But Dr. Hudson, there are some who may be wondering still what HBCUs are doing and why they're valuable. Even after our series of talking with such influential HBCU presidents, they still may be wondering what's going on. So we want you, Dr. Hudson, to leave us with the final message that speaks to why HBCUs continue to fulfill a missing piece in our society and why we must strengthen our HBCUs for their future sustainability and the prosperity of America.
Well, that's a great question. And again, first of all, let me start by saying it's an honor to be a part of this podcast. Thoroughly enjoyed the engagement and just the dialogue and really the support and the highlights you're giving to HBCUs. Very, very proud to have participated. But, as you were asking that question, and as I think about this, the story of this country is really the story of moments, right? Certain moments in time, moments in history. HBCUs were founded to meet the moment of its inception. How do you educate this population of former slaves, uneducated? How do we begin to integrate them into this society? HBCUs were created to meet that moment. If you fast forward to the civil rights movement, we're pressing for our rights, whether it's in the courts or on the streets, and you look at the leaders of that movement, Thurgood Marshall, Dr. Martin Luther King, HBCU grads, again, stepped up to meet the moment. Fast forward to present day, George Floyd, economic inequality, social justice, Black Lives Matters. Every step of the way, again, who are we looking to help meet the moment? HBCUs. These things will continue to happen. America will continue to have moments in its continuous reckoning of its past. It is important that you continue to invest in HBCUs, because what other institution is out there, what other African-American led institution is out there that's equipped with the infrastructure, with the history, the legacy, and the ability to meet the moments when race becomes central in America? Who's going to produce that diversity to take us into the next century? It's not solely the jobs of HBCUs, but it's certainly primarily the job of HBCUs. We must continue to invest in communities of color, but you have to invest in HBCUs going forward if you're going to live up to your mission, and America is going to live up to its promise. So the only message I would leave is that the continued investment in HBCUs is really a continued investment in the improvement of America and into a better America. So I'll end it there. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you all. Let's keep these types of conversations going. Please invite me back anytime. This has been a great dialogue.
Yes, it has. And we appreciate that message there. And that's something we can send out, to anybody. And you hear that message, you understand why it is so important for us to properly fund and support our HBCUs. If you're an alumnus or not, you can still support HBCUs. You don't have to be a graduate to support them and do things like this, or just have the conversations. And more importantly, when you hear something negative, also try to correct it and maybe follow that up with a positive story, because we know people like to tell the negative stories. So we just appreciate you giving us your perspective. And if you don't get anything else out of this series, you should at least understand that we just talked to maybe 10 or 11 of the best institutions in the country, and that is no small feat. And so there are many more that we didn't get to. Well, we gave you 10 or 11 of the best, schools in the country. So look them up, share with, any kind of students, anybody in your family who's looking at going to college or who's later in their career and needs to go back. You can go to an HBCU and they can handle and take care of you. So that's my last thoughts on that one.
The only thing I was going to add to that is, Dr. Hudson, I love what you said about HBCUs have met the moment throughout history. That's something that's a positive, just like, investing in HBCUs, investing in America. I love when you said that, because there have always been moments through our history where, like you said, you can go to where an HBCU graduate is leading and championing it, that moment. And like you said, there's going to continue to be those moments in the future. So that's why we've got to always have our HBCUs around, because if we're not going to do it, no one else is. No one's going to do it at the level of expertise and the level of dedication and duty that we can do it for ourselves. So thank you, Dr. Hudson, for laying it out there for us. Thank you again for ending our series, dynamic messaging, throughout the entire conversation. So viewers, remember you've been listening to Dr. Thomas Hudson, president of Jackson State University. Again, Dr. Hudson, thank you. Stay safe. And we're going to take our last little break. And viewers, when we come back, Devin and I are going to wrap up our episode as always. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. So as always, we like to end the show with giving you a look forward as far as what is upcoming with the podcast. So the first thing is, unfortunately, this is the end of our HBCU awareness series, and an amazing series it really was, talking to 11 presidents and leaders at HBCUs around the country, really getting a snapshot of the state of our HBCUs. And so every episode, every interview, every conversation that we've had you can listen to it either on, wherever you listen to your music and podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, you can listen there, or Podbean. But you can also watch them on Facebook and YouTube at Black Agenda Pod. You can find us. You can go back and listen to all of them. I would highly suggest if you just watched this one with Dr. Hudson, go back to the other 10 and go through and listen and see what's going on at our nation's HBCUs. And so after this, we'll be back to our regular lineup. So we'll be back to the normal podcast, one episode a week. But we have thoroughly enjoyed bringing you some great content and some great conversations with leaders at HBCUs. And so, of course, we bring you the news every week. That did not stop during the month of March. It continued. And so we'll be back in the month of April with our weekly roundup, which is where we bring you some breaking news of the week, some news you may not have heard about. We give it to you and try to do that in an unbiased way, in a funny way, an engaging way. And so you can watch us this Saturday, April 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Central Time on Facebook and YouTube. And again, you can find us at Black Agenda Pod. And so again, we appreciate you sticking with us. And one other thing we always like to tell folks is that we appreciate any support, whether that is monetary or you just sticking with us and watching. But we do have some ways that you can give back to us and help us create more content like you just watched. And so Adrian, you can let the folks know where they can give us a few dollars.
Yeah, Devin, that's very, very important because as Devin always says, this venture is not free. does cost real dollars. It's not something fake or anything like that. You have to pay real money to get these things operate. And the other thing that we would like to remind people of is that there's a purpose behind, behind why you're donating. The easy part, go to our website. Let me just get the easy part out first. Go to our website, blackagendapod.com, click the donate button, and that's going to get you to donate. But the better side of that is the mission behind what we're trying to do. As you can see from our conversations, we're engaging leaders to have conversations about society to better, ourselves as citizens, to better ourselves as global leaders. So that's the mission about the Black Agenda podcast. We want to be, better citizens, better leaders. So we want to have different things that we can have, like an organization, like our Charity of the Month that we're doing, maybe an event at the end of the year to kind of, provide some, sort of outreach to the homeless. By you donating to us, it really helps to spread our mission further. It really helps us to do things that we didn't imagine we'd be able to do before. So really, really important for you to be able to donate to us. $1 a month, that's a really, really small contribution to start with. That's what we always start with when we encourage people to give. Grassroots efforts here. So $1 a month, that's all you got to do. Go to our website and do that. Now, I already referenced our Charity of the Month, but just to give you a little bit of insight, throughout March, we did have the Thurgood Marshall College Fund as our Charity of the Month. April is going to be a new one, so be on the lookout for that. We'll give you some details on who our Charity of the Month will be. But again, that's another reason to donate, because if you donate to us, maybe we can give some sort of donation and recognition of the Black Agenda and its fans to that Charity of the Month. So yeah, Devin, really, really easy to give. Go to our website, blackagendapod.com, click donate, and so many different reasons of why you should give. So yeah.
Definitely. Again, like when you donate to HBCUs, you're donating to America or supporting the country there. And so same goes here at the Black Agenda podcast. You donate to us, we're going to support the community alongside HBCUs and organizations like the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. So again, we're so happy and we appreciate you sticking with us throughout our entire HBCU awareness episode. It's been a very busy month for us here at the Black Agenda podcast. So although we thoroughly enjoyed this series, we are happy to now be back on regular schedule afterwards. And so you can also engage with us. You can like our pages, follow us on social media. We're on the 3 platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And so you can find us at Black Agenda Pod. And again, that's at Black Agenda Pod. That's our handle. So go check us out. Share anything you see. Share it with your friends, family, coworkers, anybody who's near you. Make sure we get this information out there. We're trying to get it in front of as many people as we really can, because it is great content. So of course, go and share that for us, and we would really appreciate that. So for me and Adrian here at the Black Agenda Podcast, again, we thank you for watching and staying with us. And we thank Jackson State University for making Dr. Hudson available to us. It was a great interview. So again, we thank you for staying with us, and we'll catch you next time.